Hi, my name's Anna Danko, and I did my research on the effects of classical music on the sleep quality of Alzheimer's patients. So, as Dr. Chan said, I was part of the K Fellowship, so I did the majority of my data collection throughout the summer, and then I spent the year analyzing my data and taking part in the science fairs. So I decided to choose this topic because I took hospice last year, and in that class I volunteered with patients who had Alzheimer's disease. So I kind of got to see firsthand a lot of the problems that the patients face. And so I decided to do research to try to help out with the problems that I saw. So today I'm going to be talking a little bit about some background on Alzheimer's disease, and then I'm going to go into my research question, my methods of study, what I found, and then the implications and significance of my study. So just a little bit of background on Alzheimer's disease. It's the most common form of dementia, and it causes issues with behavior, memory, and cognitive function. Alzheimer's disease is a long-term disease that patients can live with for 4 to 20 years, so it's something that people live with for a really long time. And today in the United States, over 5 million people suffer from Alzheimer's disease, and that number is projected to grow as high as 16 million by 2050. So it's a pretty big problem in today's world. So along with symptoms of memory loss and aggression, patients who have Alzheimer's also experience sleep problems. And studies have shown that as many as 20% of Alzheimer's patients experience confusion, anxiety, and agitation beginning in the evening. This is known as sundowning. So the evening disturbances can prevent the patients from having adequate amounts of sleep, and insufficient sleep can have very detrimental effects on the patients, including obesity, diabetes, cardiovascular disease, and immune system problems. And sleep problems in the patients can also have negative effect on the caregiver's quality of life because they won't be able to get as much sleep. So sleep quality has many different aspects, but the ones that I focused on for my study was the time to fall asleep, the total sleep duration, and the number of wakings. And the sleep disturbances that Alzheimer's patients have can cause them to have a longer time to fall asleep, a total overall sleep duration, and an increased number of wakings. So patients with Alzheimer's disease often show symptoms of aggression, anxiety, and depression. And music therapy has been shown to improve these symptoms. One study done at the Lance Patali Hospital showed that music therapy caused a significant reduction in the activity disturbances of the patients. This included aggressiveness, anxiety, and depression. So Manoa Cottage Care Home already has a program with music that the patients listen to, and they have their own headphones and music players. And so I kind of worked with the nurses and the material that they already had there. But the music program that they had at Manoa Cottage didn't focus at all on sleep, so that's where my study kind of came into play. So music has also been shown to significantly improve sleep. And one study found that listening to 45 minutes of classical music each night significantly improved sleep quality in the participants. And despite the numerous studies that I found that correlated classical music and sleep and music and Alzheimer's, I didn't find any that compared, that had the classical music and the quality of sleep in Alzheimer's patients. So that's where my study comes. So my question was, can classical music improve the sleep quality of Alzheimer's patients? So for my methods, I had 4 participants, all from Manoa Cottage Care Home, and all 4 were female. And for each of my participants, I gave them a jawbone up move to wear on their wrist, and I put the jawbone up on the participants at about 6:30 each evening, and then I took the jawbone off at about 9:30 every morning. And so I had the participants' sleep measured for a total of 5 weeks. So for the first week, none of the participants listened to music before bed. They just tracked their sleep with the jawbone. And then for the next 4 weeks, all of the participants listened to 45 minutes of calm classical music every night before bed. And then I had the nurses fill out questionnaires on the first day and the last day of the study. So for my questionnaires, I had first the Alzheimer's disease related quality of life. So this is a small portion of the questions from that questionnaire. So for each question, the nurses had to either agree or disagree with the statement. For example, he/she talks to people. So they would either agree or disagree. And then each of the questions that has a positive or negative effect. So I looked at the changes in the nurses' responses from the start of the survey to start of the project to the end of the project. And so this was the second survey that I had the nurses fill out. It's called the Sleep Disorders Inventory, and the caregivers have 8 symptoms, and then they rate them based on their frequency, severity, and caregiver distress. And so they come up with a total number, and then I compared the score before and the score after. So one change that I had in my study was switching from headphones to speakers. So initially I was using the patient's headphones that were provided by the nurses, but then a few days into the study, the nurses recommended that I switch to speakers because the patients kept taking the headphones off, so they weren't listening to the full 45 minutes of music. So I bought speakers, and then I used the speakers instead. So the job on UPS that I used collected a very wide variety of data, but the data that I used was the sleep duration, the number of wakings, and the time to fall asleep. So participant 1 had a significant increase in sleep duration. So before this study, their mean sleep duration was 7 hours and 7.46 hours, and then the mean after the study was 9.91 hours. So it was a pretty big increase in sleep duration. For the rest of my studies, patients 2 and 4 did not have any significant difference between this sleep duration in the beginning and the end. And then participant 3's sleep duration was close to being statistically significant with a p-value of 0.0555. And that mean changed from 8.4 hours to a mean of 11.01. So the bedtime of participant 1 became significantly earlier as well. So their bedtime changed from an average of 8:47 p.m. to an average of 7:33 p.m. So they started falling asleep a lot earlier, which is good because it meant they spent less time lying awake in bed. So none of my other participants showed any significant changes in bedtime. And for the number of awakenings, none of my participants showed a change in the number of awakenings, but this could be because the nurses routinely checked on the patients during the night, which could have caused them to wake up more. So for my Alzheimer's disease-related quality of life survey, the participant that showed the most positive improvement was participant 4, and they had 5 questions that showed improvement. And for the sleep disorders inventory, participant 3 showed the most positive improvement. The majority of their questions actually showed improvement. So through my research, I found that music can be, for the sleep disorders inventory, one problem that I had with the surveys was that different nurses filled them out before and after. So it was hard because their perception of the patient could be different depending on the days that they worked and how long they'd been working with the patients. So overall, I found that music can be used as a possible therapy for Alzheimer's patients, as one of my patients showed significant improvement in both sleep duration and bedtime. And I hope that this study will positively impact the lives of both Alzheimer's patients and their caregivers by giving them an option that could potentially improve the Alzheimer's patient's sleep. I believe that it's very important to care for the elderly in our society, and I hope that my study will have a positive impact. So through my experience working with this study, I learned a lot of things. I did the majority of my research over the summer, collecting my data, and I learned that it doesn't always go as planned. I thought that it was going to be pretty easy to get participants and to collect data, but it ended up taking a lot longer and was a lot more difficult than I initially anticipated. And there was just a lot of bumps in the road, but I learned that you just kind of have to keep pushing forward and not get discouraged by all the things that go wrong. And so overall, I had a really wonderful experience, and I would highly recommend to anyone to either do the K Fellowship or take the independent research course. So I'd like to say thank you to Mr. Kane, my mentor, for helping me out, to Dr. Chan for being my teacher in the independent research, my parents, because especially during the summer, they did a lot of help with me, and then to the nurses and staff at Manoa Cottage, because they really supported my project the whole time. Thank you.